Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today. I'm Jennifer Bagley, host of Catalyst for the Trades, and I've got Mr. Chuck Statsquitskis. Am I
Almost.
closer?
Almost.
Jeez, I've done it 3 times today.
That's
You would
okay,
think
kid. I can't say a Chevrolet.
That's it. We have a bet, Darren. She'll get it by episode 50. This is episode 23, so she got a few more to go.
She got time.
Chuck is currently taking a poll. There's a pot. I believe there's some money in it if you want to get in.
The over-under?
The over-under.
Oh my goodness, we're so happy, you guys, to be here with you today. Today's very special because we don't get this opportunity very often where we get, I'm going to say, a newbie with an industry legend and another industry legend all joining at the same time. So today we're really excited to have Tyler.
I'm talking about one of the greatest things in
Right.
the industry going into the heart of summer sales.
Right?
Yeah, and I'm not sure how many industry podcasts I've watched of father and son too. So
And
Oh,
father
there you
and
go.
son, right?
That's
This
right.
is really exciting. So, you guys, today we're going to talk a little bit about Tyler's journey. This is the Tyler Show today. And we're just here all to support you. Tyler, tell us a little bit about your background. Pre-HVAC, pre-home services. Tell us about you.
Absolutely. Well, first, thanks for having me on. This is exciting. This is my first trade podcast that I've ever done. So definitely excited to be on here. But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll start from, after high school. Let's start there. So, born in Las Vegas, grew up with my father in the trades, moved us down here to Sarasota when I was 2 years old. So I've been living in Sarasota ever since, 2005. Grew up in Sarasota, went to school here. And, after I graduated high school, my dad can attest to this as well. I had an alternate plan in mind that I was going down. So I originally was supposed to be going up to Tallahassee for college, planning on doing a whole business degree at FSU. And 2 weeks before I was planning on going over to college, I woke up one day with something telling me to not go and something telling me to pursue, the sales sides of things. And that's when I started working at my previous job, which was in the fitness industry.
Well, don't forget to say that it was like 2 weeks before you were supposed to leave that you told me this.
That's right. Yep, we had the dorm. We had the dorm.
Dropped the bomb 2 weeks
Deposit was
before
down.
college.
So I'm following in my father's footsteps. Yeah, it was funny. I had all my classes picked out, had the dorm set up, the deposit down, and just decided not to go. But yeah, so after I decided not to go, I was currently working at EOS Fitness, which is one of the more popular gyms down here in Florida. Just as like a front desk worker, kind of like a summer job thing that I was doing. And, I had an opportunity to go into the sales role there, which was, selling memberships and personal training and all of those types of things. And started to really like it, started to really succeed at it and, outshine my peers and really just loved it. I really loved interacting with people, helping people. One of the biggest, things that satisfied me with that job was being the staple of being able to change someone's, lifestyle as far as their fitness health goes. So I worked my way up through the ranks pretty quickly there. I went from, in just a year time, I went from just like a front desk worker all the way up to a general manager. So that relocated me up to Tampa for a year, and I worked as a general manager there for a year. One general manager of the year for the whole company and everything like that. And then a couple months after, I get a phone call from my dad. And he's like, I have this really cool, interesting opportunity I want to talk to you about. And he mentioned, the sales role with D&D Air, which is the company I work for now. And, like he mentioned, he trained me for about 3 weeks, learned a lot from him. And now we're here. So that's kind of the process that happened before, the HVAC. And now I'm here. So
Hey, your dad is so proud because each one of those life moments, I got enormous texts or calls, and you wouldn't believe this. Tyler just hit top salesperson for this day. I got every one of those moments. Your dad brags to the people he loves.
That's awesome.
I'm lucky. I've got great kids. So Tyler is one of them.
And you
So-
don't have to say that these days, right?
right? You know? So Tyler, it's not sexy, right? Home services isn't sexy. Selling heating, air conditioning, it's not like, I mean, top
I think it's
salesperson at a banging gym, and you're
right.
surrounded by all these people, and then you're like, oh, HVAC. What was your first thought in your mind when he said, I've got this great opportunity selling heating and air conditioning systems? What went through your head?
Scared and nervous. Scared and nervous, but confident in myself, I would say. It took me a couple weeks to make the decision. I think my dad can attest to that. You know, going from a company where, you know, you're, not to sound cocky or anything, but you're like the top dog in that role that you're in, to going to something completely new that you've never done before is definitely very scary. So I think the biggest problem that I had making that transition was just realizing that in order to, you know, continue to grow and succeed in my career, it takes those steps of overcoming those fears and overcoming those challenges to be able to grow into a better person and, you know, continue that career. Because I felt like in my previous career, my previous job, I kind of had hit that ceiling. And I talked about that with my dad. I was like, yeah, you know, this job is great. I'm doing great. You know, money's good, but I feel like I'm not going anywhere with it. I feel like I've reached my ceiling. So I think the HVAC, the trade, kind of allowed for me to break out of that ceiling and, you know, accomplish a new fear and take on a new fear and, you know, see what I'm all about in the HVAC game. But it's been fun. I've been loving it.
Dude, I'm
You know,
so proud of you.
I got to tell you, watching, you know, I watched everything he just said from a different purview, right? And so something that he won't say for himself, but I'll say, is that he was the youngest general manager in the company. Okay. And the top general manager in the company of an organization that was probably 80 to 90 units wide. So when I think back to my experience in multi-unit management, we were always looking for that person, right? So, and when you found them, they got a lot of attention. And that attention is currency. It's one of the currencies that make us love what we do, right? So he was making six figures at 21, okay, and was going to walk away from that. He's going to walk away from that to a straight commission position with absolutely no safety net, okay. And the only promise that he had was I would transfer everything I know to him. He was going to have to do it himself. I didn't go on and sell any. Nobody sold Tyler's jobs. Tyler sold his own jobs, and Tyler. But my point is, so to watch somebody be willing to make that kind of a choice and step away from something that was so sure, you know, and into something obscure, right? Like, let's face it, it's nice when people know and pay attention to the accomplishments that we make. Like I said, it's currency, you know? But Tyler's always been an old soul. And so, you know, it didn't surprise me that he found it in him to make that change.
You know, I love when young guys get into this because it brings me back to when I got into it, Tyler. And good on you, my friend, right? Like, there's one thing in life and there is no certainties, right? You go out and you create your own life. Okay. You know, just like if the economy's bad, it's bad for one person, doesn't have to be bad for you. You can create your own economy, right? So, you know, good for you for thinking and taking the leap of faith and like, you know, just by being on this, you're speaking to younger people too, right? And share this with those people that are thinking like, okay, I don't have to go to college, right? I think I know that we have gotten away from where the younger generation, all of them are saying, I got to go to college. I got to go to college. It's like now 50-50 or
But
maybe
there's still a
even
lot of
less.
prestige in it, Chuck. There's still
Yeah,
a lot of prestige in it, right?
look, Darren, you want to go to college? I think the only reason you go to college is so you can make the networking connections that you can create business networking in the future, right? Like that's realistically what most people go to colleges for. You know, and especially these prestigious ones. But you got to think about this too, Tyler. Jen said it's not sexy. Shit, it is sexy as can be. Think about this. Think about
Territory.
this, right? No, hold on a second. Think about this.
All right, bring
right?
it.
The top sales guys or sales guys in general in the HVAC industry, it's like the top pitchers in baseball or the top quarterback in the NFL. Literally, like you were working for a great company, you had great success, you were doing something that you love, changing people's lives, right? But how many of those companies were out there, and how many, if you left that position and that company failed, how could you pick up and get 10 of those positions somewhere else? No. Let's put it this way. With heating and air conditioning, wherever you're at right now, let's say tomorrow that company doesn't exist. You could go out in the position that you're in, and there's 20 people that would hire you or 30 people that would hire you. And it's name your price. You know, I used to take guys and their wife out to dinner just to have conversations. I would talk to sales guys for 2 years straight before they would come over to my company. It's literally like that. Like, so you put yourself into such a remarkable position, and I'm sure you know it because Darren's probably educated you on it. But to everyone else out there that might be listening, like you're in the Super Bowl of home services. Like that's cool.
That is, that's a cool way to look at it, because you remind me of when I was first in the industry, and
Yeah.
I came into the industry in the same role that he's in, but I came from not much to lose. You know what I mean? Like it can't be too bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Started broke.
But it's but I remember thinking about this, and I was like, there's nothing that says that I can't. I always loved athletics a lot, and for circumstances outside of my control, I didn't get to pursue it the way that I wanted to. But I used to tell myself when I was in my truck driving to sales calls, like, I'm the Michael Jordan of this.
Yeah.
I'm the Mike Tyson of this. Like, I may not be as visible to all these people, but I kick ass at this. And I found that, that's what drove me so much, was to be the best, because, I don't know if it's in his DNA or what, but this dude has this maniacal drive to be the best. I'm telling you, like it's nuts. Okay.
Tyler, what's your goal for the year? What's your number for the year?
So far, my goal.
You mean first 12?
Yeah, first 12.
Yeah.
I mean, my first 12 goal initially was 2 million.
Okay.
But now I'm really pushing for 3 based off the way that I've started.
That's amazing.
So you know what he used to say to me? Here's the stuff he'd say to me. So I'd be training him all day, and then I'd be getting all these texts and calls at night. And he's like, so what's a good closing rate considered? And what's good? How do I measure how good I am? And I said to him on closing rate that if you can't at least close 6 out of 10 on marketed leads, you're never going to be great. Okay. If you want to be great, you got to be able to go to 10 marketed leads and close at least 6. Okay. And sometimes there's stuff that's outside of your control, right? Sometimes it's about how well the lead was set up or whatever it is. So there's all these other management pieces that go along with it, right, to make this work. But that was the answer. And he always wanted to measure himself, like how, so I wanted him to have no preconceived notions. And so when you hear him say, oh, I think I could do at least 150 to 200 million a month, or excuse me, 1,000 a month. And which would be wonderful if the other was true. But as soon as he started, he was like, "Oh, I think I undercut myself." So,
and
what?
I used.
Oh, I was just going to ask, what was training like? You said 2 weeks.
3
weeks. So you were ready to go to college. You were killing it in your role. You crapped out and said, "Nope, I'm in. I'm going to do this." What was those 3 weeks like? What did you concentrate on?
Great question. Yeah, so I did a lot of training with my dad, and then outside of that, I did a lot myself that I'll talk about here. But with Darren, my dad, I feel weird calling him Darren.
It feels weird. It's fine. Dad's fine.
Yeah. So with my dad, we did about 3 weeks of training. So what that looked like, it typically consisted of, like he said, going in the morning at 9 a.m., doing 2 to 3 hours of office training. And then after that, I would ship it to an install and watch the install team. That way I can get a little better idea of, when it's actually my turn to go on sales calls, what am I supposed to be looking at? Asking the install team, what are your biggest pet peeves about salespeople? What are the things you like the most about what salespeople do? That way I can get a better idea of, when I do start, how to create a smooth process from start to finish for the customer. But inside the classroom, the first week consisted of just general HVAC knowledge. What's a heat pump? What's a straight cool? What's a mini split? I had no clue. So I was walking in clueless. So the first week was more of like industry knowledge as far as equipment goes. The second week was more of sales strategies, which included a lot of the PerfectMatch training, a lot of the 7 principles of persuasion, a lot of those sales tactics. And then the third week was kind of like combining that all into a process, if you will. Would you agree, Darren?
Yeah.
Practical application.
Right.
Yeah. And in that go ahead.
I was just going to say, you had some advantages I think a lot of companies don't have. You mentioned PerfectMatch, where I think not everybody is set up with the technology to be able to go through the sales process and not have to know the math and the calculations in the same format. Talk a little bit about the technology support and how that gave you a lift and was able to propel you forward faster.
Absolutely. Yeah. So PerfectMatch has been beautiful. PerfectMatch is great. So the way that PerfectMatch works is, it basically is a platform that walks you through the full quote building process in a very detailed manner. So I think the thing that I like the most about PerfectMatch is how interactive it is with the customer. Because the way that I was explained when I came into the industry, it seemed like a lot of these salespeople do like okay, I'm going to go into the house, I'm going to talk to the customer, I'm going to look at the equipment, and I'm going to ship it back to my truck for 30 minutes to build a quote, and then come back in and tell them what the price is and hope they buy. What PerfectMatch does, it allows me to not have to spend any time away from the customer. And what I mean by that, it has a very specific step-by-step process that I'm actually having the customer do on my computer. So they're actually clicking the buttons and they're seeing what's going on. And they're like, for example, putting in their zip code to find how much the utility rates are, and putting in the size of the system and clicking on whether it's a heat pump or a straight cool, and then walking you through the process. But I think the biggest thing that PerfectMatch does is it represents the value in the system as far as the total cost of ownership. And I think that that's the biggest thing that sets it apart, because, going into an average, homeowner, they're not going to know, the utility rates, the SEER ratings, all of this stuff. So being able to condense that into a platform to where it's actually creating a system to where I'm able to show the customer not only what the hardware price is, but what the price is going to cost over the course of the next 12 years of when they have that system, allows me to not only create a clearer image of what that value is, but also it drives my average ticket up, because when we're presenting these variable speed systems and these inverters and these high efficiency systems, HVAC is one of the only things where when you get the best piece of equipment, it actually costs you the less, right? So that's one of the biggest things that I think helps me using the PerfectMatch, is being able to show, what's going to be the lowest cost of ownership, not only buying the piece of equipment, but actually when you own it. And I think that's something that the average consumer isn't thinking about. So I think that's one of the biggest things that that PerfectMatch helps me with.
Get them involved and get them away from the distractions that they
Exactly.
face.
Exactly.
Well, the other thing that it does, though, is that it sets you apart.
Right.
Because let's face it, it's a much more skilled sales approach when you're marketing for a market, when you're running a marketed lead. Let's face it, the only way, in most cases, the only way that the flip model from a tune-up to a sale works is if you got them captured right then and there. They're not getting a bunch of other prices. It's just like they basically say yes or no, right?
Right.
And when you're running marketed leads, the most common thing that happens is that they are comparing you to others. And I don't like the word shopping, because shopping is what it's just a dumb word. It's a comparative process. And people that are in the stage of taking action, which is what they are when you are invited into their home, they're comparative. And in most cases, it's not urgent. And in almost every system that Tyler has sold, still runs. Okay. So the ability to convey value is not only in the trust factor that goes into the customer's confidence and what they're buying and why, because that whole because part of it, everything after because is the logic, right? And we give them so much of that logic that they understand that part quickly, but it's also how it more professional it makes him look, because of the fact that he's the one who's using this. Because our brain says, well, if they're this cool on this side of it, they're probably really cool on this side of it too.
Yeah, and the experience, right? So what you have is, if Tyler's coming in and running that process, and then you have, okay, let's say he doesn't close that right then and there, but then you have the next guy or the next two people that come in, and they're just like, yep, it's gonna be, and they don't run a process, and they just throw out. I'm thinking, whoa, Tyler actually walked me through. I understand a lot more. I know he's going to be there if I call him, if I need something in the future, right? Like, that's where a lot of contractors I see fail, and a lot of sales guys fail at this too. They just think, we talked about it a few podcasts ago. They just think, oh, you know what? There'll be 3 more jobs after this. There'll be 6 more calls after this. And
what sucks about that?
Love the one you're with.
You know what sucks about that?
Love the one you're with.
It's complete. What you're just saying right now is completely what screwed up this industry.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, in the category that I'm referring to, is that they have screwed up the metrics and the numbers by doing that so much that they have to sell the person who says yes something for significantly more than they should really have to pay for it, because of all the people that said no, because of the way that they're going. So
it's exactly what we said on the last podcast.
Just talking about that.
Yep.
Listen, this isn't a new conversation for us, right? The cost of acquisition is rising so much, and the success rate is diminishing, that you see these systems going up for these companies to be able to continue to make earnings, because that's what private equities. You don't get to not make your earnings; they have to grow, right? And so, I mean, you can be a good salesperson. You can be a good salesperson with personality.
Yeah.
But you'll be a great salesperson with the superior strategy and the superior tools. And Tyler has that. And I'm not saying it because he's my kid. I'm saying it because the numbers don't lie.
But I think there were sequential pieces to this, right? You have, number one, Tyler is extremely personable. He's friendly. He's personable. He cares. He's a great communicator. I mean, I've mainly hung out in your backyard, but that's enough. Just my first introduction with him, and he's got it, right? He's personal and he's brilliant. He's sharp. Wanting to be a goat, that helps to have drive, right? I would agree with that. Darren, your training, like, you weren't trying to make a technical expert. You were trying to give him the tools to be proficient at being a great communicator.
He needed conversational understanding. He needed
Yes.
conversational understanding of equipment. So when he tells you like the first week was about equipment, it was conversational understanding about equipment. Like, he can't tell you what superheat is because I don't even know what the hell that is, right? So
And there's value in not being too technical.
you don't need that.
You don't need that. Right. I think that
No.
the consumer, that will pull the consumer away. That's not where they are. Tyler has to listen to what's important to them and has to help them accomplish what's important to them in order to go through this process. He can't blow smoke with a bunch of technical jargon that means nothing and the consumer doesn't give a rat's ass about. That's not going to work. Right. So that's one.
Why I also made him go sweat in the attic. Right. I mean, you got to go. No, you've got to understand but this is a relay race. Okay. And there's a person before Tyler, and there's Tyler, and there's a person after Tyler that makes the continuity of a good experience happen to their consumer. And he needed to understand how important handing off the baton the right way to that team is. Because if you don't, and there's resentment there because of the fact that, let's just be real, man. If you are putting your installers through shit because of your lack of professionalism and being thorough and just not acting like, a rookie, they're going to love you. Right. But if you put them through that, they're not. And it will come through, when they're with the customer. When they're with the customer, they're happy they're doing Tyler's jobs. They're going, man, he did everything he was supposed to do so that we knew what we were supposed to do. Right. And that level of professionalism is something that is what makes the difference between good and great.
Yeah.
My comfort advisors, I made them, suggested them to them. I didn't make them. I suggested to them that they go and buy their installer's lunch and they, visit their jobs while they're doing them, all this and that. You aren't going to just come in and be a comfort advisor and not have the respect of the guys in the trenches, right? And that's important. Like,
I love that. I love that you're saying that, because we again, these are things that I did, and I'm not saying that, that means that I'm great. I'm just saying that I cared, and that culture, you got to treat this like your own little business, right?
100%.
And you're in control of the culture of how a guy feels about doing your job, and so everything you're saying.
The guy before and the guy after is what makes Tyler look really good. So why not take care of those two guys, right? Yeah. The guy before is saying, Tyler, let me get Tyler out here. He's very knowledgeable. He's setting you up. The guys after are doing everything that you've promised to the client. So it's a working combination.
Yeah.
Well, I would also add in there, so we don't miss, Darren had a key point, which was they also didn't BS the customer in the marketing process.
100%.
They're marketing to a customer to replace or upgrade their system out of the gate, not just trying to go in and get them in for a tune-up only to flip them, but they're actually letting the client know this is what I'm here for and then delivering on that, which has got to make your job a lot easier.
100%.
So it's, how do you say it the right way? Ken Goodrich has a saying at Gettle. And, you know, I know how good Ken has run his businesses. And even, you know, though there were times when we were competitors, you know what I mean? You could never deny the fact that the dude really built something amazing. And, you know, if you know anything about them, then you know that they do it the right way, not the easy way. And that's their motto. You know, we do it the right way, not the easy way. And that's just like what we're talking about here. You know, it's so I hope that there's some industry people listening to this, because I hope that they're encouraging their own kids and looking and looking, you know, like they like their jobs and that they like the industry, so that their kids will want to go in it. It's, you know, multi-generational people, multi-generational in an industry. I have a friend and business partner whose father was a mason, and his father was a mason, and his father was a mason. And that is Americana to me. You know what I mean? That's Americana.
Sure.
And I hope that if you're listening to this, that you're representing to, you know, the young people around you, whether it's your kids or your nieces, your nephews, whoever it is. This is a legit industry, man. Look, if this dude does $3 million in the next 12, you understand that before he's 23, he'll be making $250,000 a year with no debt, right? No debt. And what's not baller about that?
No, that's awesome. Tyler, I got a question for you. What do you do to get prepared when you go in a home? Like, you got PerfectMatch, you got all these processes that dads. What's Tyler's method when you pull up to a client's house?
Are we talking pre-call?
You're just getting ready to walk in, right? Like, you've done the pre-call, they know you're on your way, you're getting ready to walk in. What is your method for going into the call?
Absolutely. Well, I'll back up one step. One thing that I started to do that my dad told me not to do was pre-qualify the leads. So I do think there's benefit in listening to the call, but I don't think that there's benefit in deciphering the call and making qualifications because of that.
Perfect.
For example, you know, you'll have the calls that are like, hey, I'm just in the market to see, you know, what the prices look like. I'm shopping around, whatever the case may be. Because if you go into a call with a bad mindset of I'm not going to close this, or this is a bad call, you're never going to close it. So I think the biggest thing that my dad taught me that helps me going into the call with the I'm going to close it mindset, no matter what it takes, right? So whenever I'm walking up to the door, I'm fully 100% confident that I'm going to do everything in my power to provide a great customer experience, build a relationship, and walk out of there, you know, happily involving the customer with a new HVAC unit. Now, I think the biggest thing that set me apart, and this is feedback that I've gotten from my customers, is the relationship that I build with them. There's times where 30, 45 minutes go by and we haven't even talked about anything HVAC related.
100%.
And I think that I like what Jennifer said when we first met and we were hanging out. That's honestly what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm trying to make it seem like I'm just in your living room, back room, and we're just hanging out and we're building a friendship. We're just getting to know each other. And then, you know, the side product of that is you're getting an air conditioner from me. So shifting the mindset from I'm going in there to get a sale versus I'm going in there to build a relationship, the sale comes after that. So I think that's 100%. The thing that's helped me.
Yeah. And along the lines of that, like, what are you listening to? I mean, obviously you got your dad is great, but what are you listening to? Are you listening to any podcasts? Are there any other mentors out there besides your dad?
Absolutely. The amount of podcasts, I feel like I have no more to watch. The amount of podcasts that I've watched. I can't remember who said it, but I think, you know, the amount of time that you spend behind a windshield, if you were to spend that time informing and educating yourself, in like 2 years, you could have a master's degree or something crazy like that. So I've lived by that motto, and I watch, you know, some of the big ones that I've watched that my dad pointed me out to are, you know, Jason Walker, Weldon Long, I've even watched some of the Catalyst podcasts. So
Jason will be on tomorrow, so make sure
Oh,
you
really?
catch that episode. Yep.
really, we'll have to
Yep.
tune into that. That's one of my goals, is to get on his podcast. So I'm going to do that next. But yeah, I think I'm not a big music person when I'm working. So when I'm driving, I don't know if you know this, but I drive an hour to 2 hours to work every day because I still live up in Tampa and I haven't relocated down to Sarasota. So I have a lot of windshield time. So I spend it on a lot of podcasts, YouTube videos, everything like that.
Love it. Love it.
It's kind of cool when you get to have, friends in the industry that are high producing and have, very long track records of success. And so I know Weldon Long real well, and I know Jason Walker real well. And so I started a text chain between me and Ty and Weldon and Jason, because I wanted to make sure that Tyler was exposed to more than just my viewpoint. Now, I did tell him that if anything he hears is contrary to what I said, you bring it to me, because that's bullshit. Okay. I did say that, didn't I?
You did.
He's
not lying.
I said, you can watch all the training you want unless it contradicts anything I've told you. Okay. But the reason that I wanted him to be involved with Weldon and Jason is because what they teach and what I teach are in alignment. And we all subscribe to a very high relationship, high value, awesome experience for the consumer when it comes to the sales process. And so,
and that's key. Like everything that you guys have both just talked about is a lot of guys try to overcomplicate it. It's not complicated. Stop, build the relationship. The sales comes afterwards.
But you know what? You can't give something away you don't have. And so I just got to say that the best salespeople that I ever work around are really great human beings too. And it's like,
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like there's a very genuine vibe going on when you're bringing something really positive into a customer's house. And that positive thing is the truth. And one of the things that makes it so hard and so what I consider to be sometimes morally, you're making moral decisions that maybe go against what really you feel good about, because there's an air of dishonesty that happens in the way that a lot of people end up buying air conditioners. And when you don't have to, when you come in with the truth, it's completely different. There's a completely different vibe, isn't it? And
it's not just truth. It's you're authentic.
Yeah.
If you actually care, like Tyler, you don't care about air conditioning, really.
Right.
You care about your client having the best experience with the company that you're working for. Bottom line.
Exactly.
Like, whether they buy an air conditioner from you today or not, doesn't matter. They're going to remember Tyler for a long time. And that's authentic. You did it in the gym. You're doing it now.
Let me ask a question, Tyler. Would you have been so interested in taking the leap if the company you were going to work for was not technology forward? If they were still operating with pens and paper and a price book and you're having to do the math, the old school process, do you think you would have been, at your age, same time frame, would you have been attracted to the company if they were a little more old school?
I definitely wouldn't have been as attracted to it, for sure. I think one of the biggest things that I saw an opportunity with was what my dad has built and the tools that he has built, and him communicating that value to me before I even took the job. It was like, okay, I understand the directions that he's trying to take this business with. So to answer your question, no, I wouldn't have been as excited about it or as enthusiastic about it to make the change if it was, old school. I think the new technological advances, the the industry is always changing and the world is always changing, and you have to adapt to that change, right? Because consumers are changing along with the way that the economy and the community is changing with all of the technology and everything like that. So being able to adapt to that puts us at a step above, because now we're a step ahead of the game when everyone else is still reacting. So I think, the tools that we have built has made it a lot easier to not only get into the industry, but have fun doing it as well.
That's what, Darren, when you were mentioning that you're hoping that this becomes generational, I wanted to highlight that because as much discussion around how difficult it is to recruit, how difficult it is to get somebody up and running that's a performer, I don't think that's necessarily true. I do think it's true for some, right? And if we don't take our blinders off and start seeing that in order for us to attract quality individuals like Tyler, we need to have a tech enabled, a tech forward, a smart operation to be able to attract someone like him. If the operation is still running like snail mail and slow and behind, and if we're not leaning into technology, providing tools and so forth that give them the opportunity to get started quickly and be successful quickly, no matter if they're your kid or your neighbor, it doesn't matter who it is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
And I think any owner out there listening right now, hear the key point. He worked with Tyler for 3 weeks, and he's on the road generating money for the company. That was one of my biggest hurdles that I had to face while growing and scaling, was how do I get people in a seat generating money fast? That's it. Very, very impressive. Especially you're on pace to hit potentially 3 million in your first 12 months off of a 3-week, and you're in a truck. If you're an owner, you just got goosebumps.
Yeah.
Because once you figure that out, that is like, I mean, if you could duplicate it over and over and over, obviously you got to have the willingness. You got to have the right people.
You got to have the right people.
But listen,
forward.
Listen, I say this all the time when I train. It's a recipe. You start screwing with the recipe, you screw up the outcome. Okay. If you want to just do it your own self, your own way, then just do it your own self, your own way. If you're going to follow a plan that produces consistent results, I mean, that's what you should do. When I first learned this industry, I learned it from a little manual about this thick called Instafix. Okay. And there was no internet training. There was nothing like that. I mean, I read this thing.
Dinosaurs were outside and stepping on the ground.
I'm telling you. And so to be able to step in and do something so fast is just a testament to the whole process. But you've got to follow the recipe. If you start messing with it, you're going to just screw it up and you're going, oh, that didn't work. Well, it didn't work because you didn't use it right. One last thing I'll say. Number one, I want to make sure that we talk some metrics, because we're not talking baloney here. Okay. So Tyler has been running leads, and he reports directly to me. Okay.
Real quick, Tyler, would you have accepted the position if they were not able to sustain a consistent lead flow for you? Was that part of your qualifying decision? Would you have gone and knocked on doors to build this business, or was that something you looked at? What was their marketing and lead flow?
I didn't really think too much about the leads, because the way my mindset is I'm going to make it happen no matter what. So no matter whether it's one lead a day, 2 lead a day, so making it happen no matter what was my mindset. So yeah, wasn't really too focused on asking about how many leads I'm going to be getting per day or anything like that.
Well, that's not entirely true. Okay. Because I remember, here's what he'd say to me before he'd start. He's like, I want to know how leads are distributed. He goes, is it merit-based? Like whoever's the best gets the leads first. These are the questions he was asking me. Okay. And can I expect to have, he may not have remembered this part of the conversation, but I do, because my answer was, it's my job to worry about the leads. You don't worry about the leads. You all you got to do is go in there and do your thing. If you go in there and do this, you'll be very pleased with the outcome. I'll say one other thing. We need to talk more when we're teaching about detaching from outcome, because guys get too attached to this imagined outcome. And and if they didn't imagine it right, if they didn't imagine reality and they're now not experiencing it, they're like, oh, this shit, blah, 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 it doesn't work, whatever. And then they fall out. If you just do the right thing and you get good soil and you make sure it's ready, and you get a good seed and you plant it, and you make sure that it's watered the right way, and you keep the bugs away and blah, 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 blah. And you're going to get a guaranteed outcome. The tree's going to have apples. That's just going to be the way it is.
Yeah.
And so Tyler, and this is why I say old soul, because it's not too many 21-year-old people that you can talk to and say, listen, do you understand what I'm telling you right now, this concept? You will screw yourself up because your mindset will be whacked, because you'll be looking at everything through a lens that is worrying about the outcome. Don't worry about the outcome. Just follow these steps. So he's run leads for 2 months now. So April and May are his first 2 months. He did 197,000 and in May. And again, I'm going to tell you right now, almost zero turnovers. It was almost 100% marketed leads. I want my salespeople running marketed leads so they stay very, very sales fit. Do you understand? Okay. Number 2, this month, he's at what, 223?
Yeah, I'm at 223. Hoping to break 250 at least.
He's got a couple he's still talking to and working on, but and we still have 2 days. So the last thing I'll say is this. What I watched in Tyler was a person who disciplined himself to train after he and I were done that day. So, yeah. I mean, and if I had a meeting and I'm just like, hey man, I'm sorry, I got a meeting, then he would be sitting right outside my office at the table, and I could hear him. He's watching videos, and I mean, he did the work. He did the work. If you take a guaranteed proven method and you apply that kind of champion behavior behind it, you're going to get a guaranteed outcome. And so, that's what it is. And this message isn't about shining light on Tyler. This message is about saying, listen, here's a person who made a choice, difficult choice, and look what the outcome has been. And the other thing he wanted to know about was upward mobility. And I said this to him: you're in an industry where there's more opportunity than there are qualified people. So, 100%. That's back to what Chuck was saying. Chuck was like, look, man, you can go anywhere with this, but Ty wants to explore those boundaries. And so I said, you have my absolute guarantee that as you continue to evidence that you can apply yourself in those same ways in other areas of responsibility inside this business, where you make your money is in the roles in which you duplicate yourself. Okay. You're not going to just step up to some role and think that, well, because I made this as a salesperson, I'm going to make even this as a manager. The only way you make that kind of money and it continues to compound is when you duplicate yourself in others. And that is something that, he says he wants to do. And I have absolutely no doubt that he will accomplish it. And, we'll be doing another podcast, but
love it.
Yeah.
So. Love it. Awesome. Tyler, you got any last words for everybody out there?
I would just say stick to the process. Consistent processes lead to consistent results. If you're having a bad week, don't try and change up the process expecting a different result. Like my dad said, detach yourself from the outcome, stick to the process is right, build relationships, and the results will follow.
Yeah, you got to shake off the bad days.
The hardest part.
That's one thing. And it is.
That's been my biggest challenge. But
I was at the wine shop the other night, and he calls me because he had just told me that he had just made this sale for like $12,500, and he calls me, and I won't tell you what he actually said, but he's basically telling me that the lady, the customer had waited him out all day. They were supposed to be going in tomorrow. She authorized all the paperwork and the process and called him back. No, texted him and said, I talked to my dad. We're going with a rude. Thanks for your time. He was pissed. But I said to him, it doesn't matter.
Take it off.
It doesn't matter. Those are the one.
Yeah.
Those are in the 30 or 40% that you're not going to sell. So who cares?
Tyler, and here's where I would go with that. I would take a look at and see if there's anything in the process that you might have missed out on or skipped out on or that you could tweak. Those were my favorite ones because I'm like, oh, that ain't going to happen to me again.
Right. And that's another thing I'll add is one thing I like to do after my calls. I like to pull off somewhere in my truck for 5 minutes and just debrief the call. Like step by step, what could I have done better in that call to lead to a different result? So I'd have to agree.
Do you have Applaud yet? Do you have a Applaud device?
No.
I have one you can have.
Yeah, take the Applaud and start using it on every single call, and it'll break it down for you so you can see word by word. It's like Rilla, but not tied to the CRM and all that stuff. I think that is an excellent idea. And I love it. I'm proud of you, my friend. I just met you and I'm proud of you. I'm looking at your dad smiling and grinning and like, this was an amazing show. I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing this journey with us.
Absolutely.
I'm lucky. I've got 2 of my kids in the industry now. So, and they both work at D&D and equally as talented in another realm as Tyler is his brother Bailey, who is a master installer. And so, it's I'm lucky to be surrounded by great people and really makes me happy to be able to expose them to great people because, I want Tyler to know Jen Bagley and I want Tyler to know Chuck Stexowitzki and I want, I was close.
Love it. You were close.
If I would have just stopped at the Stekowitz, I think I would have had it, right?
Close. You're like this close.
All right.
I won't tell you either.
But, and I told him that surround yourself with the best people. That's what winners do. You hear those memes and everything all the time. It's because it's true, right? Is that if you want to be great, detach your ego and find the best people to be around that you can, and then rise to their level and then find better ones and rise to theirs,
You know what, Tyler? I thank you even more because I learned something from you today. And when I take everything and approach like that, like I humble myself so much, and I don't care if it's my 8-year-old son teaches me every single day, right? And it's staying that humble and being able to just recognize it. That anyone that you meet can teach you something. So I love it. Jen, what do you got to say? Oh,
Can't hear you.
I can't hear you. Uh-oh. Anyways.
Sign language.
No. We will wrap it up. We will see you guys tomorrow. Catch the episode tomorrow. Tyler, I know you'll be listening. I'll put in a good word with Jason for you too. Let's do that.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Jen, are you there? You're back?
I am.
Well, perfect. No.
Okay, so I unplugged the microphone. Tyler, I am so proud of you. As a mom and a parent and watching you grow up, I'm so proud of you. And the number of times your dad has called or we've been with him and he's talking about you. I've seen tears in that goat's eyes so many times talking about you. It warms my heart. I'm so proud of you. And you're an example for the industry. You're going to have your own show and you're going to be teaching other companies how to do this as well. The light is on you, my brother.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you tomorrow.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.